Hello and welcome to Presence Dialogue, and I'm your host, Joe Diamo. A Presence Dialogue is an approach to communication in which participants tune into a frequency of consciousness, a quality of listening beyond the personal level with the accent on the novelty of the present moment. We tap into a field in which we are at best conduits for the deeper intuitive intelligence of the heart. And I am happy to have Stevie Ray back with us today. We have one video up, and I would suggest that people go to Joe Diamo Presence Dialogues or Joe Diamo YouTube Presence Dialogues and watch the first one too. Not that you need to in order to get this one, but there is a continuity. And the continuity for me revolves around this idea of vibration, frequency. You mentioned amplitude. If we could start there in terms of what that means in terms of consciousness and the evolution of consciousness, and what is all this frequency stuff about? Maybe we can start with that.
You bet.
Okay, go ahead.
Everything is frequency. Light. Let's stick with light for a moment. The visible spectrum, the one we see, frequency. Mm-hmm. And there's more on either end that we can't perceive with our five senses. And the amazing discovery for me was that by shifting my capacity to hold energy in my nervous system, raising the amplitude of energy there, I can perceive higher frequencies. Now that includes the invisible world, mm-hmm. more than the light spectrum, the sixth sense of intuition, psychic phenomena, clairvoyance, audience, and so forth. Those are all persistent frequencies that we can tap into when we have a higher level of energy in our nervous system. It's always available. It's always on, never off. And we can also begin to perceive other realms, as in lucid dreaming, for instance, being awake in other frequencies of time and space and reality, and stay awake there. That also means if we're perceiving frequencies that well, by containing energy in our nervous system, we can perceive our world differently. The good news is that the ego mind cannot grasp high frequencies. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Therefore, when we move into those higher frequencies, the ego mind loses its grip, and the old behavior patterns and neurological circuits that create those fall away, they weaken. And we can learn to identify with the higher frequencies and make those perceptions our new identity, our new home.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Does the ego like just forget at that point, or what happens to the ego when those higher frequencies are being realized by a part of you? I'm going to call a soul, yes. Or a deeper part of us, our essence. When that's happening, does the ego just simply fall away for the time being?
Yes, it's our attention. I think I'd frame it another way. Our attention moves away from the habitual neuronal patterns into this much more exciting, intuitive, and more resonant frequency. And then the more we stay in that space, the more we can resonate with that. That becomes who we are. That becomes how we perceive.
Right. Now, it's interesting that you mentioned lucid dreaming, because I've been working with that lately. And, astral projection, lucid dreaming. And it's interesting that we, a lot of authors, so-called authorities on this subject, say that when we lucid dream or when we astral project, we would do it every night anyway. Like Rudolf Steiner says that, our physical and our etheric bodies stay in our bed, or stay here. and then our astral and our I, our higher
Our
entity.
perceiver.
Yeah, the true I, leave every night. Okay, so from that perspective, when you connect with higher when higher frequencies are connected with, it's probably more accurate. You have experiences and perceptions and so on and so forth, but because they're on frequency levels higher than the ego structure, doesn't that explain why the ego doesn't remember? You wake up and and you've been to other astral dimensions, other even higher than astral dimensions, and yet you don't remember.
Yes, I think
you're now back in the ego consciousness, and there's no connection between the two.
Well, we have a lot more experience with the lower level vibrations, the physical.
Right, but there's no connection.
Right, and so to the degree we are feeling connected with those higher frequencies, and I'm going to say bathing in them, sort of basking in them, we have the opportunity to shift our perspective and take a much more spiritual, a much more higher level, angelic view of what is actually happening. In sleep, my experience is that the more I can attend to the higher frequencies of energy during the day, I have a better shot at night at lucid dreaming, which is being fully awake in I'm going to call it a lesson, in a state of learning that is quite extraordinarily contoured to our growth and development. It's perfectly personal.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And you can remember it to the degree that you can recontact those frequencies.
Right. See, that's the key. That for me, because it seems like it's about creating a bridge too between the ordinary mind and the higher mind.
Right. And I view us as a bridge between worlds, the seen and the unseen world. The seen world operates at lower frequencies and lower amplitudes of energy. The unseen world, the world of spirit and our guides and all the angelic realms, they operate at a very high frequency, and we have to condition our nervous system to hold those higher frequencies, which happen at higher amplitudes of energy. This is an actual law of electrical engineering. So imagine this. So this is a way to think about it. So here is a frequency. It's like two waves, right? Two peaks. And the frequency is the distance between one peak and the other peak.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So now in this same frequency, between this long, I'm going to do 20 of them.
Right. Yeah. It's all about the speed of them.
Well, which one took more energy for me to demonstrate?
The second one.
This one or this one?
Right. Yeah.
Higher frequencies require sustained higher amplitudes of energy. Now, most of us, when we get excited, it's like, yes, wow, oh, that's a lot of energy. How long do we sustain that?
Mm-hmm.
Most people, cheering at a sports game or, at a concert, there's a high, or go to a seminar, experience a higher amplitude of energy. And then we have not trained our nervous systems to sustain that level of energy required to remain in the higher perception of a higher frequency.
Is there a point where it stabilizes at a higher level? I mean, where you don't have to, don't work at it?
Absolutely. maybe I'd rephrase, you don't have to work at it. It's where you're working at it, continually improving
Uh-huh.
your perception of higher frequencies.
Right.
So, you know, it's the case of identity, right? There's only so, our nervous systems are accustomed to only so much energy as an amplitude, as a power, right, running through our system. When it gets too much, most people go into fear.
Hmm.
This is like, then they start shaking it off. Imagine Kundalini rising. How powerful. Can you live in it though, and go shopping for bananas at the supermarket?
But that's the goal, right? I mean,
Yes.
to be
Yes,
able to live in
exactly.
those higher frequencies.
Yes, and so if you're imagining the spiral of evolution in consciousness, each turn around the spiral is not a circle, but you're going up
Yeah. Right.
each time.
Right. Of course, you're
And
coming down, you're
yeah,
going up, but
yeah,
but,
and
but the
you're
movement,
fascinated.
is
Right,
progressive.
right. So, you know, what if it getting to a place where you have fully identified with the current level of energy you can sustain in your physical frame, in your emotions, and in your consciousness, that's here. And then to evolve, it means letting go of that and actually reconditioning the nervous system to hold a higher amplitude.
Uh-huh.
You know, going from 15 amps to 30 amps.
Right. But
That,
isn't it possible to go backwards?
sure, you can devolve. It's all choice. But as you evolve, then you're consciously working to hold more joy and excitement
Uh-huh.
and aliveness in your nervous system and in your organs and in your perception, and to let go of our limiting fears that, oh my God, this is going to fry me, or oh, I can't take it, this is too much energy, and you start shaking it off. Kriyas are like that,
Yeah.
right? Shaking off to what your system can't sustain.
Right.
So
So,
when you do learn to sustain it, you've made another turn around the spiral
uh-huh.
and gained this much more perception.
Right. So what would bring it down? What would reverse that course? Uh,
Well, the
uh,
opposite, right? Reverses the course, which is, I'm going to let my fear run me. I'm going to do what's comfortable all the time. I'm going to do what I know and not experiment with what might bring me much more energy, much more aliveness and excitement.
uh-huh.
You know,
A choice.
when you ride a roller coaster, you know, it's like, that's fun for a few minutes. Could you sustain that all day, every day? You know?
But that's what you're saying is required for
Correct.
the evolution of consciousness.
Absolutely. And
Now,
it's,
don't we also get used to that so that it's not
yes,
experienced the same way, although it's containing that
right,
higher frequency of energy?
right,
Yeah.
right. And so, for instance, if we get triggered by someone, all of a sudden there's a big rush of emotional energy. How are we going to treat that? Are we going to use that to elevate our frequency and perceive it from a witnessing point of view that says, I'm reacting right now. I wonder if I can hold this and use it to shift my perception into one of joy, love, and compassion
Okay.
for myself and the other.
Right. Now,
And
right this moment, because this is Presence Dialogues, and we're having a Presence Dialogue, and I'm sitting here in this frequency, and I'm feeling your energy right now. So, like, can I open up to that? You know, can I open up to that and sustain that?
yes,
And so it's a moment by moment thing. This
right,
idea.
right,
So we get triggered by, okay, this is a good one, I think, because this is the most common. I mean, the most common way that we lower our frequency, if not the only way, is by our reactivity.
Yes.
Anger are all our lower, so-called lower emotions. And so at that point, like right this moment, if I choose to get into the excitement, and I could right this moment, that phenomenon that you're talking about could happen either way.
That's right.
Either I could shut down, and be pretty much not present, or I could say, oh, I feel this right now. I'm feeling this emotion. This is really great. It's exciting, the conversation, and I'm present in it.
Yes. Without denying it.
Present in it. So that, therefore, I am right this second, or one is right this second, choosing, like every moment, to be present and to contain and be centered, and to allow that nervous system to adjust to that energy, or to let it take us down.
Right. So venting when we're triggered, and projecting.
Yeah.
You just hurt me.
Right.
Right.
Which in psychology is considered the healthy thing to do.
It is. It's a good start, right? This is a process, at least to at the level of consciousness is what we're choosing from.
Right.
And so to get so that we have, I'm going to call it we have a 3-second window to choose in that triggered situation. If we actually can stay perceiving of the higher frequencies and not just vent and blow off the steam from whatever the root of the trigger is. This is not to say that venting is or emotions are lower or higher. It's frequency,
right.
Perception,
right.
And we do what we have to do to make another turn around every spiral and let go, die to the old identity that could only handle this much joy.
Yes.
To open up to one that can handle this much joy in a broader bandwidth of perception.
Right. I think it's important to make the point that we're not talking about, the lower emotions are bad, and the higher emotions are good.
No, they're important.
Bad. They're actually, we're talking about our relationship to it in order to go up the spiral instead of down the spiral, and eventually to stabilize at a higher perceptual level.
Right. And so standing out in the sunshine on a beautiful day, I can be worried about my brakes on my car. And then I can go into a spin on that. I don't even need anybody else around. I can just send myself into a spin like, oh, a brake job, that's this much money. And oh my God, or I can notice that I'm going into that spin and take that 3 seconds to put my attention on the larger field
in the moment,
in the present, and find a way to love it, that moment, just the way it is. Can you find a way to love every moment?
And by love here, we mean to first of all, to accept. Right?
Yes. And just
a little bit more.
Rejoice.
Okay.
In that next breath. Right?
That could be seen as love in a way.
Yes. And I would choose, personally, I do my best to choose that higher frequency perception over the venting, to then be able to forgive myself, right, for falling out of the moment and going, the brake job, oh no. Right. As instead of like, ooh, okay, this is another aspect of my beautiful life. And this is not to be Pollyanna.
Right.
We have, our emotions have information for us.
Yeah.
About where we want to be in the moment, how we want to heal, to become more present, and so on.
Yeah.
So it's a both/and piece to commit to holding higher energy in your nervous system and perceiving higher frequencies. We are going to be both in the body, fully accepting of the current emotions, the parts of me that were traumatized, that got there, the fear around money, whatever it is, and also hold that connection to spirit to shift our perception of what it means in the present. Now, we're meaning makers.
Yes.
Higher frequencies shift meaning.
And it also implies the idea that everything that happens to us is for the best if we can use it that way. If we can open up to the evolutionary possibility of every moment, then whether it's a negative emotion or whatever, it's a gift. It's a way that the universe is actually trying to evolve itself. No?
Yes, it's trying to evolve us. So because we have a unique perspective on, as a monad, as a spark of source, we have a unique perspective, and we are helping consciousness itself evolve.
Right. So you could say God in a theological context, the universe, God is experiencing us every moment in a unique way, so that we have a contribution to give as a unique being.
Yes.
In God's experience.
Definitely. And definitely. And the beauty of that is that we then become more powerful creators. By holding more energy and shifting our perception, we become more powerful co-creators with spirit. And we can sort of get on the frequency where we're continually aware of the guidance on how we can follow the path that sparkles for us. And that's the beauty of committing to the upward spiral of the evolution of consciousness. Life not only changes, but our perception of what's happening to us and around us and wants to come through us, that changes. And we're more, I believe, in my experience, we're more able to be, as you said earlier on, conduits for healing light and love and joy and wisdom to come through as we all work together to reach the tipping point in consciousness.
Right, for a collective
for the world and for humanity.
Okay, could we come back to frequency for a second?
Sure.
Come back to frequency in terms of relating to frequency. I like your image. That's basic science, right?
It is.
So when we're talking about frequencies of consciousness, we're not talking about anything different than frequencies of the electromagnetic spectrum.
Well, yes, there's the electromagnetic spectrum, and then there's this, I'll call it spirit energy, because it's not yet measurable.
Right.
We don't have a good lexicon for it, because that electromagnetic energy decreases over distance. Spirit energy, more like quantum entanglement, does not.
Okay, so what I'm saying is that, but it's all within or on the continuum.
Yes.
The electromagnetic spectrum. We just haven't been able to measure it.
Maybe, or maybe it's something entirely.
Yeah, that's my question.
Different,
That's my
no
question.
unified theory yet. So, but the beauty is how so thought transference or psychic phenomena, right? Is we're all in a shared field together. It's like Indra's web from the Hindu philosophy, where it's a huge net, like a fisherman's net throughout the universe. And at every intersection, there's a jewel, and the facets in that jewel reflect all the other facets and every other jewel in the universe.
Yes.
That jewel is our consciousness. So, instantaneous transmission.
Right. And we're talking about frequency. So these higher frequencies are literally that, right?
Yes.
So therefore, it would have to me, it would have to be.
Yes. Your sixth sense becomes more well developed.
Yeah.
You become more highly intuitive and trusting of your intuition and spiritual guidance. The seventh sense, the opening of the chakra, the crown chakra, getting larger and larger in diameter, means that there's more of that conduit of light that can flow into your nervous system without frying you. and then that powers.
Hold on to that. I want
to. The sixth and seventh senses. The seventh sense is resonance, really. It's the ability to modulate your perception, to enter into different worlds or levels of consciousness or the akasha or whatever. And that's just as normal as walking from one room to another.
It's a matter of opening, right? So that, okay. So what does frying mean? I mean, because, we hear about Kundalini, spiritual emergence. We hear about if you open up too soon, don't do Kundalini unless you're doing it with a real master or you have some real serious inner guidance, because you could fry yourself. And I've heard it, and I've had friends who have gotten fried because they had a spontaneous opening.
Yes.
So what is it that has to be prepared? I mean, the vessel is the body, the etheric body, the emotional body, the physical body. And you talk in yoga, they talk about purification, that the nadis have to be purified because otherwise you're going to burn out your circuits. Okay, so it's more. Can we just maybe we'll finish with that because it's getting kind of long, and I knew it would because it's so interesting. But maybe we can finish with this and then continue from there. But so what specifically are we talking about when we're talking about preparing the vessel? Okay?
So this has happened to me several times where I was injured, burned essentially by too much Kundalini at one time. However, it's not the Kundalini. Think of your toaster. What makes heat in your toaster is resistance. Electricity comes into the toaster. The wires in the toaster create resistance. They heat up, toast. So I got burned because I was resistant. Going, no, I'm not worthy. Or I'm afraid, I can't handle this. Or any number of ways in which I could have congestion in any of the chakras.
Yeah. Congestion,
energy congestion, and not a nice free flowing. It's like, or.
Well, what about, okay.
That resistance creates heat that.
Right. Burns you. So what about, like in the yogic tradition, you're preparing the physical body with, maybe a vegetarian diet or a clean diet. What about if your physical body is full of toxins and so on and so forth, and then you let in, you awaken to the moment's higher frequencies.
Yeah.
And yet your body, you're used to eating at McDonald's every day.
Yeah, well,
so what happens to your body? In other words,
the body is just one piece.
But it's
physical body is just one piece, and the emotional body, the mental body, the subtle energy body, and the causal body.
Right.
Any place where there's resistance, barriers, or congestion can create the heat.
Okay, so the resistance
burn from higher amplitudes of energy.
So the resistance in the sense of the body could be the chemicals, the bad chemicals we're eating all the time, the bad food, the bad, unorganic. So if that's the case, then we're going to feel pain in our body because this higher energy is trying to move through.
Right. Or it could just be contraction. Doesn't necessarily, always go to pain.
Yeah.
And it's so wherever there is, so on the physical piece, it's getting in touch with your cells all the way down to the DNA level, really being able to clear and move and ground energy through the physical frame, and to strengthen the liver and the heart, and there are the brain, especially the insulation around the nerves in the brain and the nerves in the body. I'm not thinking of the word right now. This is
I know what you mean.
the layer so that we're not leaking electrons. What happens in diseases, Lou Gehrig's and others, where the myelin sheath, or the myelin sheath deteriorates, is you start leaking electrons, and so you lose functionality. Now, you can still go directly to God, go directly to enlightenment, even if your body is in pain. It's just harder.
I see.
And the emotional body also congests, and we get stuck, and we get identified, and those things can create places where instead of that Kundalini energy just flowing through us and amplifying our field, we overheat in those areas.
Right. So clearing the emotional body is
clearing and grounding the emotional body. Mental beliefs. If you think it's going to kill you, that's going to lead to resistance in your system.
Right. I see.
It's taken me. I was burned by the Kundalini at 21, and took me weeks to. I actually had second-degree burns all over my face.
Wow.
From staring into white light and having.
Right. I remember you telling me this. So it translated into the physical body.
I woke up with incredible pain. My nostrils were brown, bubbly patches through my cheeks, my earlobes, my chin, and all my face was red. Whether or not this was a histamine reaction or, it doesn't matter, because the mental body was, in my resistance, was playing it up and creating blocks to the flow of this energy through me. Mm-hmm. So again, you can say the same thing around the subtle energy field. If you're not really working to clear and unify your field, if you unify your field, instead of 7 chakras, you have one big dish antenna for receiving information and receiving. So one thing that, it's like, how much joy can you stand?
Yeah.
Like, why not start there?
Right.
It's like, how much excitement, joy, and enthusiasm and theos, right? How much can you hold in your nervous system? That's a good place to practice.
Okay. Now, in terms of cleansing, wouldn't the higher energy itself have a cleansing function if you could open up to it?
My view is that cleansing is a choice.
A choice, but in other words, can't the energy itself that you open up to, the higher energy, can't that in itself be the cleansing agent?
I believe so. What can't it do? Right. On the other hand,
theoretically, yes, you're right. Absolutely.
But as the creator, how do you want to recreate yourself?
By accepting the higher energy and allowing it to come in and to retune all of our bodies.
Right. So progressive desensitization, progressive sensitization. These things go together.
Yeah.
How much fear can I hold in my nervous system without losing my presence? How much joy? How much sexual energy a tantric approach, right? How much sexual energy can you hold?
Yeah.
And so on. And all of these things work towards cleansing us of belief systems that, if that happened to me, I would freak out. Well, okay, start there.
Okay, so I'm going to stop right now. We're on a peak and it's beautiful. I think that's where I want to stop. And this is already pretty long, but this was wonderful. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's just my pleasure. Let's do more.
Let's do more. Absolutely. And how did you feel in terms of presence while this whole thing was going on?
Delicious.
Did it feel good? Did you feel like you were?
Feels yummy and delicious.
I just wanted to mention that one technique that you talk about in your book, and I always forget the name of it, but I know, in essence what it is.
You are God enough.
Well, you are God enough. That's Stevie's book. That I would highly recommend that. I mean, on different levels. I mean, it's profound information. It's a fascinating story. Your book, everybody should read that thing, especially people who are trying to go on the upward spiral, for sure. So that's for sure. And then I'll put up also, your website and everything on this video, as I did on your last one. So we don't have to go into all that right now. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you. For me, it was, it was a matter of continuing to stay here while this excitement, just exactly what we were talking about, was happening to me.
Beautiful.
To contain that without spinning off somewhere.
Containment is a good thing.
Is a good thing. Okay. And on that note, thank you, Stevie Ray. And this is Joe Diamo for Presence Dialogues. Thank you, and tune in for further episodes.